Hi, now I'm going to talk about the market economy. Now, this chapter is one of the most important chapters in economics because it deals with the market forces. The two market forces are the supply and demand. The market is where buyers and sellers meet in order to exchange goods and services. What we mean by it is first, it's a location. It can be a virtual location or a real location. For instance, it can be somewhere you tend to go to buy things or sell things, or it can be through online platforms, as when you are trading on Forex. Second, it's a place where you sell and buy goods and services. What we mean by goods is that we have tangible products as in things we can touch, such as food, whereas the services are the intangible products, such as I don't know any type of service, hotel services, travel services, taxis, and all that. And the formation of the market lies on the fact that we need to have the two forces, supply and demand. In the influencing factors on supply, everything else had constant. The price, the cost, and the number of producers. First of all, the price. As the price increases, the supply increases. As in, when we have more prices, then we will have more supply. The reasoning behind it is that when we increase the price and we are keeping everything as constant, then our profit margin increases. Therefore, we will have more tendency to produce as we are going to profit more, therefore, the quantity of supply will increase. The cost, it's exactly the opposite. When we are keeping everything else constant, the higher the cost of production, the lower the supply, because we are not going to profit as much as we used to. Therefore, we are going to decrease our production. It's no longer as motivating as it used to be. The number of producers, of course, when we have very or higher number of producers, then it means you will have higher supplies. This is a representation of the relations between supply and its influencing factors. As you can see, the price and the number of producers have positive influences on supply, whereas has a negative one. For the demand, it is the quantity of goods and services ready to be bought from the market at a given price. As you can see, it is represented by a demand curve, which is a downward sloping curve, which means that the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded. There are more than three factors influencing on demand, as you can see on this slide. Um, we have a common factor, which is the price, but the price influences on demand exactly the opposite of supply. We can see that when the prices increase, people will have less tendency to buy things. Suppose you were buying a mobile phone for $700. Now, if I tell you that it's $2,000, which is more than it's double, nearly it's triple, then you will have less tendency to buy it. You might even buy it. We're not saying that. You might buy it, but you will have less tendency to buy it. The income. When people's income increase, then this income's increasing lead to an increase in their demand because they are richer now, therefore they have the more ability of purchasing things. Taste. Now, taste is a very important factor, and we cannot really talk about it much because there are courses called behavioral economics which deal about people's taste, and it's a factor which we really are keen to know about, but it's quite a troublesome uh, topic to talk about. Now, the number of consumers. When we have higher number of consumers, then it means you will need to have more products, therefore the demand will increase. The price of other products. Now, what we mean by other products is that we can have either a complement of a product or a substitute of a product. A complement is something which complements the main product. For instance, when you are going to eat fries, what do you get with it? You either choose a dip, which is either mayonnaise, ketchup, mustard, barbecue sauce, or Coke. So when you are consuming fries, then you will have to consume ketchup supposedly with it. And when you are consuming more fries, that means you'll need more ketchup. That's why when the price of the ketchup increases, you will consume less fries. This is the rationale behind it. And for the substitutes, what we mean by substitute is that it can replace the main product that you have. For instance, suppose you are going to buy a mobile phone, but the prices of mobile phone increase. What do you buy? You buy a landline. A simpler example is between pizza and hamburgers. When the prices of hamburgers increase, usually the prices of pizza, even if they're constant, but the demand on pizzas are higher. As you can see here, this is the relations between the influencing factors on demand and demand itself. Now, for demand, we have two types of demand. We have rational demands and emotional demands. As they state, rational demands are things done, they are decisions done without any emotional factor. It's just abstract, objective, and it's because you need it. Whereas the emotional demand is when you have a preference on something. For instance, the reason why you buy an iPhone and not a Samsung. This is an emotional demand. Market equilibrium is when we mix the demand and supply curves together. It is denoted by E and its coordinates are QP. It represents the point where the market is in equilibrium, which means the quantity demanded is equal to quantity supply. There are no shortages and there are no surpluses. Whatever is being produced is being consumed. Now, an example of what happens when we change the price. Now, supposedly, we are at point A, which means that we have 80Q and 12P, $12. And then when we increase the price to 16, as you saw in the previous slides, when we increase the price, the demand will decrease. Therefore, we can see a movement along the curve upwards, which means that we will have less consumption of quantity, less demand. This is another explanation, which means that whenever we have a factor influencing on the quantity, or either on demand or supply, other than the price, we will have a shift and not a movement along. This was the explanation. You have some applications to do. First one is about drawing the supply and demand curves. Second one is about multiple choices. You have one, two, three multiple choice questions. Then number three is about really getting into it. If you do this correctly, then it means you really understood it. Now this is something which you are not responsible of for this year, but it's something which we use it very often and you are going to use it next year, hopefully when you go to university. Just a hint, equilibrium is when QD is equal to QS. Application 4 is when you can differentiate between the supply and demand curves. And this is the second part of application 4. It's when you can really recall the changes that occur when a factor changes. I thank you for your time, and I hope that you understood it. Now, to talk thoroughly about supply, it's the quantity of goods and services ready to be sold in the market at a given price. What we mean by this is that when you produce something, it doesn't directly go to the supply side. When you tend to produce something in order for you to sell it for a profit in the market, then it becomes part of your supply. Now, on the right side of the slide, you can see that we have a curve. This curve is called the supply curve. It's a function between the quantity and the price. As you can see, there's a positive relation between price and quantity. When we have higher prices, we can see that the quantities are increasing. That's why we say that the supply curve is always an upward sloping curve.